The Torah portion, which we read this Shabbat, as Rabbi Weissman has shared with us, is Parshat Ha'azinu. That's heavy. Parshat Ha'azinu, as you can see, is a poem. It's lined up in these two different columns in the Torah scroll. And as I was thinking about the Torah portion, I was thinking about one of my favorite poems. E. Cummings wrote, "I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Everywhere I go, you go, my dear, and whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than the soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart." I did that from memory, which is pretty good, right? Especially because since crossing into the 50s, I don't remember much of anything at all. But poetry is something that stays with you. In the Midrash to this Torah portion, Dr. Wendy Zierler from the Hebrew Union College quotes this very famous passage from the Sifra, which says, "Great is this poem, because it has present, past, and future, and the world to come." So when we think about a poem, how can a poem have a present, a past, a future, and redemption all rolled into one? What is it about this poem, or any poem, that can do that? And the fact is that poetry can convey what simple language cannot. Poetry is that extraordinary transcendent use of language where language is more than language. Language is a sacrament. What is a sacrament? A sacrament is something tangible that transports you into the realm of the holy. When I take a mezuzah and I affix it to the doorpost of my house, and I take those words, the Shema and the V'ahavta, and I put it on the doorpost of my house, they're tangible words. I can read the scroll. I can see the box in which they live. The Bayit is what it's called. And at the same time, right, it transports my home from four walls into a mikdash ma'at, into a little sacred place where God and we dwell together. Dr. Zierler quotes her teacher, Robert Alter, the great biblical literary scholar, who says that every literary tradition converts the formal limitation of its medium into an occasion for artistic expression. The artist, in fact, might be defined as a person who thrives on realizing new possibilities within formal limitations. I'm reminded of a story of the Kutzker Rebbe who was giving a shiur, and it was right before the new year, and one of his students kind of slinks out the back, and he says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "Well, I have the honor of laning Torah tomorrow, and I wanted to go back and review the portion." And the Kutzker said to him, "You know, the words of the portion haven't changed since last year, but you have, so maybe you should go home and review yourself." The rabbis weren't overstating the case, Dr. Zierler says, when they argued that the poem includes past, present, future, and the world to come, because in many ways what this poem does is it takes something and then it expands it. One of the things that you find in literary poetry is these couplets where you start off with saying something and then you say something with even more grandeur or exaggeration or fulfillment. And in the poem itself, while there is this prophecy that the Israelites will wander into the land of Israel and things will go well and they'll grow fat and happy and forget about all that the Holy One did to allow them to attain their sense of blessing. And then all will go wrong. The Holy One will seek vengeance. And then when they repent, the Holy One will welcome them back. And Moses uses this poem not just to remind them of this prophecy, but to remind them of where they've been. Because as we'll see in the little snippet of the poem that we'll read tonight, there are resonances that go all the way back to the story of creation itself. The word tohu, this idea of the void into which the world was born, is present in this poem. At the same time, there are references also to creation and Adam and Cain and Abel, and all of these little snippets, these resonances, these metaphors, as Rabbi Weissman promulgated to us, are all ways in which we inhabit the past. But it's also the ways in which, as we did by uttering ancient words in this last week on Yom Kippur, propel ourselves into the future. Poetry doesn't just touch us. It can live within us. In this poem that we will read, God is referred to in so many different metaphoric ways. God is a rock and a father and a nursing mother and an eagle and an eyelid or an iris, a judge, a warrior, an avenger, a granter of expiation. God is all of these different things because we are constantly in ourselves, in our lives, in a process of unfolding and becoming, so that even the words of a poem, even the words of our tradition, even the words that are written on the tablets of our heart are constantly evolving into new ways of growth and understanding and wisdom. And so as we hearken to these ancient words of poetry, we think about how each of us can be the authors of a new poem, a shira chadashah, a new song that we might sing to the Lord through the pathways of mitzvah, the pathways of covenant and commandment, and the pathways of our lives. Shabbat shalom.